Shabbat Shalom. It is good to be here this morning. Cold. Didn't expect the snow, but that happened. It came out of nowhere and that was a lot of snow. But thankful to be here this morning. Like we had mentioned before we started, this is something that we had been meditating on before and kind of wanted to do a message on it. I hope everybody receives a blessing out of hearing the message and hearing the word, because we definitely received a blessing for us. So like we said, I think weeks ago, even when we teach, we get something out of it just as much as anybody else would get something out of it. So he usually reveals stuff to us that we didn't even see while we teach. So if you would, let's go ahead and stand and turn to Leviticus chapter 1. Leviticus chapter 1. And verse 1, I think we'll read through all of this and then we'll go back. And Yah called to Moshe and spoke to him from the tent of appointment, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When any one of you brings an offering to Yah, you bring your offering of the livestock, of the herd, of the flock. If his offering is a burnt offering of the herd, let him bring a male, a perfect one. Let him bring it at the door of the tent of appointment for his acceptance before Yah. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. And he shall slaughter the bull before Yah, and the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim, shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood all around the altar, which is at the door of the tent of appointment. And he shall skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces, and the sons of Aharon, the Kohen, shall put fire on the altar and lay the wood in order on the fire. And the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim, shall arrange the pieces with the head and the fat on the wood, which is on the fire on the altar. But its entrails and its legs he washes with water, and the Kohen shall burn all of it on the altar as a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yah. So we'll just stop there because it just repeats itself through the different offerings. It's all a burnt offering, but it repeats itself on if you have this or you have a dove, this is what you're going to do. It's the burnt offering. So let's lift up our hearts. Yah, thank you for this day that you've given us, Yah, the set-apart day. Thank you for the tests and the trials that you give us in our lives, Yah. Speaking in this message, Yah, we just want to draw closer to you, to make that offering, Yah, to have fellowship and communion with you, Yah. We pray over this message. May someone hear this message and understand your truth and your word, Yah. We just want to have that fellowship and have that communion, Yah. You know the things that happen in our lives, and Yah, you are in control over all things. Speak for us. Speak unto your children, to your people. May you meet with us and dwell with us, Yah, as you have promised. Baruch Hashem, hallelujah, amen. So there's some very interesting points that we want to hit in the very beginning of this. We did look in the Jewish Encyclopedia and the Jewish Virtual Library for some different commentaries on the burnt offering. So we will be reading that also. So Leviticus chapter 1 and verse 1, And Yah called to Moshe and spoke to him from the tent of the appointment, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When any one of you brings an offering to Yah, you bring your offering of the livestock, of the herd, of the flock. There's a very important reason why you would do that, because when you did that, that was your livelihood. Okay? This was your flock. This was your livelihood. You are going to sacrifice something that was your own when you bring this. Okay? Continuing on. If his offering is a burnt offering of the herd, let him bring a male, a perfect one. Let him bring it at the door of the tent of appointment for his acceptance before Yah. Now, burnt. The burnt offering. That is olah, not to be confused with olam, but they are very similar because they mean whole. Olam is entirety. Olam is eternity. That's what olam means. So from here to eternity, ancient of days. But olah is whole. It is the burnt offering. If we had a title for this message, it would be the burnt offering or the ascending offering is what that is. So it's an ascending offering. Okay? So whole, burnt offering, ascent, it can mean stairway. Steps, ascending, give up in smoke, go up to. Okay, and when you get to the very end of what he talks about in this first offering, it says that it shall be a sweet savor to Yah. It shall smell it, and it should be a pleasing smell. When I was reading through different commentaries and thinking about it, when you offered something, because burnt offerings aren't only in Judaism or aren't only in Torah. People have been doing burnt offerings for a really long time. Now, what they had believed was when you did a burnt offering, you can't necessarily feed something to the gods. So what you would do was burn the offering so they could smell it. So burnt offerings have been done for a fairly long time. Now, talking about the whole burnt offering. Continuing on, there's points that we want to hit. If his offering is a burnt offering of the herd, let him bring a male, a perfect one. Let him bring it at the door of the tent of appointment for his acceptance before Yah. So it's not just any offering. It's a burnt offering. It's a whole offering. It is to be perfect. So that means it's the best of your kind that you are offering. Now, as you continue to read through the offering, it's not just certain parts. It's the whole thing. Okay? And he shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted. When any one of you brings an offering, you shall bring the offering. Where was that at? There is a part in other versions where it says he shall bring it willingly. You bring your offering of your livestock of the herd, a burnt offering. Let him bring a male, a perfect one. Let him bring it at the tent of appointment for his acceptance before Yah. I can't remember what verse that was, but it is a free will offering. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. And he shall slaughter the bull before Yah. Another point that we want to hit here. So it's your livelihood. It is to be perfect, the best of its kind, and it is your responsibility to slay it. Okay? Your responsibility. The Cohen just do the ritual, but it is yours and you slay it. Okay? Continuing on, it shall be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. In the Jewish Encyclopedia, what is the distinct character of the burnt offering? Was it a peculiar or expiatory offering? It was not distinctively that. And what I mean by that is expiatory is sin-related. Was it to expiate your sins or forgive your sins? That is not the whole purpose of the burnt offering. Okay? So, according to the Levitical ritual, though expiation was never wholly absent, so it was there, okay? It just said, it shall make an atonement for you. Although it was not wholly absent from the stated order of the animal sacrifice in the final legislation, the whole purpose of the burnt offering is honorific and devotional. That's what it is. It is to honor Yah and to devote yourself to him. Hence, whole. The whole offering. This was the only offering like that, where you burnt up the whole thing. Okay? Once the whole thing is burnt, you can't use it again. It's burnt. It's gone. It is honorific and devotional, implying homage. You are going to honor Yah and complete surrender to his service. That is why it is a free will offering. Because you have to freely be willing to honor Yah. I want to give a burnt offering now. Because that's what that represents. It's the whole. It's you. It's complete surrender to his service. So that was from the Jewish Encyclopedia, from the Jewish Virtual Library. It represents submission to Yah's will. It is a whole offering. None was eaten. Nothing of it was eaten. It was just all burnt. It represents complete submission because it cannot be used after it is burnt. It expresses a desire to commune with Yah and expiates sin incidentally. Okay? That was not the whole purpose of the burnt offering, was to expiate sin or to forgive sin or to atone for sin. The whole purpose of it was communion. You wanted a better relationship with him. And then we're going to look at some examples of when a burnt offering was given. So, It cannot be used after it's burnt. It expresses a desire to commune with Yah and expiate sin incidentally in the process, because how can one commune with Yah tainted with sin? So if you want to commune with Yah, incidentally, this expiates your sin so you can have fellowship with Him. So, and he shall skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. And the sons of Aharon the Cohen shall put the fire on the altar and lay the wood in order on the fire. And the sons of Aharon the Kohanim shall arrange the pieces with the head and the fat on the wood, which is on the fire on the altar. But its entrails and its legs he washes with water. And the Kohen shall burn all of it on the altar as a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yah. The whole thing was burnt. So, it should be should do it like your pleasure. That's the word I was looking for. It is a free will offering. He shall bring it of his own free will. That word is ratzon. It is his own pleasure, his own delight, his own favor, his own goodwill. That's the word, acceptance. For his acceptance. His will, it is voluntary. That's the word I was looking for. It is a voluntary offering. Oh, wow, that was country. Offering. Offering. It is a voluntary offering. Shall make atonement. It is going to cover, make an atonement, make reconciliation, expiate, condone, appease, pardon. I think that this is more like reconciliation. You are wanting to join yourself back to Yah, have communion with Him, and completely devote yourself to His order. That is what a burnt offering is for. Now notice, the person shall kill it, and it is his responsibility, and it must be voluntary. Genesis chapter 8. Genesis chapter 8 and 13. And it came to be in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked and saw the surface of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. And Elohim spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living creature of all flesh that is with you, of birds, of cattle, of all creeping creatures that creep on the earth, and let them teem on the earth, and bear and increase on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping creature, and every bird, whatever creeps on the earth, according to their kinds, went out of the ark. And Noah built an altar to Yah, and took of every clean beast, and of every kind of bird, or clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. That's good. He wanted to commune. Now, if you look in the instances of when this happened, it usually happens either during a test or after the test. This is a whole burnt offering. To me, it is an elevation offering. It is to elevate you from this status to a higher status. Yah, I am here, and I want to be here because of this burnt offering. It is you want to commune with Him, build a better relationship with Him. You want to have that fellowship. It is complete devotion to His service. It usually happens, like I said, after a test or during a test. So you have Noah. If you read in the book, I think of Jasher, I think it gives another account of what happens during the flood. And it says that the boat begins to fall apart. And they begin to worry for their life on what's going to happen. But besides that, you cram, 8 people, 6 people in a boat together for a very long time, and you'll go crazy. Okay? With no way out, with animals, cleaning it continually, day in, day out. All you smell is manure. I don't know how they got rid of that. Feeding the animals, all the work. That is a test. And then once Noah gets off, what does he do? He gives an elevation offering. Noah was elevated after the ark. But that's not it. So the elevation offering is communion with Yah. It is complete submission and devotion. It is getting to a higher level of spirituality through passing the test. Noah passed the test and gave an offering of communion, complete submission, and elevation offering. You imagine the waves of the boat, the people crammed together for that many days. That's a test. The boat begins to fall apart and they all fear for their life, and that's written in Yasher. Exodus 10. There's going to be a point that we get to closer to the end, and then it will all make sense. So Exodus 10 and 16. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon in haste and said, I have sinned against Yah, your Elohim, and against you. And now please bear my sin only this once and pray to Yah, your Elohim, that he would only turn away this death from me. And he went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yah. And Yah turned a very strong west wind, which took the locust away and blew them into the sea of reeds. Not one locust was left within all the border of Mitzrayim. However, Yah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not let the children of Israel go. And Yah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand toward the Shemaim, and let there be darkness over the land of Mitzrayim, even a darkness which is felt. And Moshe stretched out his hand toward the Shemaim, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Mitzrayim for 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise his place for 3 days, while all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called to Moshe and said, go serve Yah, only leave your flocks and your herds behind. Let your little ones go with you too. But Moshe said, you yourself are to provide us with slaughterings and burnt offerings, to prepare for Yah, our Elohim. You think about being in Egypt. You think about being in Egypt. Yeah, some people talk about the book of Yasher. I know that they don't talk about its validity. But somebody left a comment. But I'm just talking about that because people talk about Noah. But anyway, so when you boil it down, you see the burnt offering. And you think about being in Egypt. Once they came out, they were elevated to a higher status. I've heard different talks and different teaches on the reason that they had to go, or different doctrine, and the reason they had to go through the wilderness is to prepare them for receiving and becoming the sons of Yah. So from being a slave to being the sons of Yah, there had to be a transitionary period. They were not ready. They were not ready for that. So they had to be elevated to that status through the testing and the trials for the burnt offering. I just think it's fairly interesting that they knew that they were going to come out and do burnt offerings, an elevated status. And you think about the patience that they had to have in Egypt. That was a test. So that was Exodus 10, 16 through 29. If you continue on, and he says that we shall bring an elevation offering. But Moshe said, you yourselves are to provide us with slaughterings, verse 25, and burnt offerings to prepare for Yah, our Elohim, and our livestock are to go with us too. Not a hoof is to be left behind, for we have to take some of them to serve Yah, our Elohim. And we ourselves do not know with what we are to serve Yah until we come there. However, Yah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, get away from me. Watch yourself and see my face no more, for in the day that you see my face, you die. And Moshe said, you have spoken rightly. Never again do I see your face again. Genesis 22 is where we wanted to get to. So we talked about Genesis 22 last week, and we just hit on after this. After these things happened. So now you have Genesis 22. in verse 1. So what things had happened? We talked about him having Ishmael, giving up Ishmael. He has Isaac also. So Abraham was going through a lot at this point in time. And then you have Genesis 22 and 1. And it came to be after these events that Elohim tried Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, behold me. So that was 2 weeks ago. And he said, take your son now, your only son, Yitzhak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering. As a burnt offering. An elevation offering. As an elevation offering. Take your son now, your only son Yitzhak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I command you. Abraham did not hesitate. Abraham picked up his son, and he was ready to go. There's a very important reason why he said only son. The one that you love. And that reason is because everything after Abraham was going to come through Yitzhak. So every promise that Yah had promised to Abraham had to go through his seed, which was Yitzhak. So therefore, if you kill your son, your heritage is gone. Your inheritance is gone. The only son that you love, you must sacrifice to me as a burnt offering, as an offering. He says, Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Yitzhak his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place which Elohim had commanded him. Now we see, even before the Levitical priesthood, that they had burnt offerings. They had it in Noah. They had it in Abraham. It was something that they did. Okay? Now, I believe firmly that Abraham knew exactly what a burnt offering was. And the reason I say that is because he took the wood and he had the knife. So he had to specifically, very detailed, follow the order. Okay? Cut it into pieces. Take out the entrails. Wash the entrails. Burn the whole offering. This must be a free will offering. He freely and willingly offered up his son. So, then we see, as it continues on, let me read this first, the elevation offering. This is your only son for a reason. He said this is your only son, the one you love. This is your seed. This is your lineage. Isaac was to pass on the teachings of Abraham. He was his inheritance. And if you get rid of him, nobody's going to pass on what you know. So it's very important why he said, your only son, the one that you love. Kill Isaac, and there goes the whole family and the promise. Genesis 22 and 10, what happens? And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yah called to him from the Shemaim and said, Abraham, Abraham, and what did he say? Here it is again, behold me. That, no wonder it was an elevation offering, because it was complete submission to the will of Yah. And after this event, what happens to Abraham? We still talk about Abraham today. You know why? Because he has an elevated status above all. He was willing to give it all. Your only son, the one you love. Verse 10. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yah called to him from the Shemaim and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, behold me. And he said, do not lay your hand on the boy nor touch him. For now I know that you revere Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son. That is your life. Your life. The continuing of the heritage. Your only son from me. And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in the bush by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. An elevation offering. Once this happened, Abraham was elevated. He said, now I know that you revere me. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah Yireh, as it is said to this day, and on the mountain Yah provides. And the messenger of Yah called to Abraham a second time from the Shemaim and said, by myself I've sworn. This is his elevated status. By myself I have sworn, declares Yah, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly, Barak, bless you. And I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the Shemaim, and as the sand which is on the seashore, and let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. Not only that, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be Baruch, because you have obeyed my voice. Talk about being elevated. All the nations will only be blessed through Abraham. And what does that mean? Notice he's talking about the son. He's talking about passing on the doctrine, passing on the teaching. How are we blessed in Abraham? When you follow the steps of Abraham. When you come into covenant with Yah. Notice he said, I know, I think it's in Genesis also, I know that he will teach his children my laws, my right rulings, my judgments, my Torah. So what does it mean to be blessed like Abraham? You follow Yah. You completely submit yourself to his will. You want to have communion with him. And when he offered up this burnt offering, or was ready to offer this burnt offering, it elevated Abraham to a new status. Something else I really want you to get while we were thinking about this, because I meant to mention it earlier. Y'all are so good. The burnt offering, the sin is wrung out around the altar, or the blood is wrung out around the altar. This is not a blood offering. Get that. This is not a blood offering. The blood is wrung out around the altar, and then the body is burnt. And it makes atonement. So, you cannot connect Abraham and God with Jesus, because this was not that kind of offering. It was not a blood offering. You wrung it out around the altar. And then you burned the offering. So what is the burnt offering? It is an elevation offering. It is to give you a higher spiritual status. And it usually comes through, as we can see, the test. It is a free will offering that you have been elevated by Yah. You see it through Noah. They also say that Abel gave a burnt offering. That's the kind of offering that Abel gave. And his offering was accepted. It is to lift you to a higher spiritual status, and it usually comes through the testing. Abraham was highly elevated, notice, blessed above all nations by the teaching of Abraham. Deuteronomy 8. Now, I want to mention this too, is that we go through many tests in our life. Have you passed? Have you passed the test? Deuteronomy 8 and 11. So we've been in Deuteronomy 8 many times. Now we're going to go to verse 11. Be on guard, lest you forget Yah, your Elohim, by not guarding his commands and his right rulings and his laws, which I command you today. Lest you eat and shall be satisfied, and build lovely houses and shall dwell in them. And your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and your gold are increased, and all that you have is increased. That your heart then becomes lifted up, and you forget Yah. Through lack of attention is what the word forget means. Your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage, who led you through the great and awesome wilderness, fiery serpents and scorpions and thirst, through the test, where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, in order to humble you and to try you, that is to test you, to do you good in the end. You have got to be able to see the end. We look through challenges in our lives, and I love Ecclesiastes and the challenges that you go through in your life. Yah gives good days, Yah gives bad days. He said, it is better to go into the house of mourning than to go and laugh with fools. So you learn more through the trying times than you do through the good times. There is a test of character, a challenge of character when you go through the hard times. It really reveals, as we talked about either a week ago or 2 weeks ago, that you want to know who somebody really is. Check them out in a tough situation. Are they quick to be angry? Do they slander? Whatever they do. In a tough situation, put somebody in that tough situation and you will see their true colors. You will see who they truly are in a tough situation. When the, knuckles to the grinder, rubber hits the road, whatever you want to say, that's who they really are. That's who that person really is. So, who are you? Can you control yourself through the test? Do you know how to trust that Yah has all things in his hands and that he can get you to the end because he's promised it to his people? He said, I wanted to test you and try you to do you good in the end. But I just want to know, are you, and we talked about that because I love Deuteronomy 8 now, going back to Egypt, are you going to press on? Because I made a promise. Yah is good. Things that we want to get from this message. The whole burnt offering. It's the whole thing. It's your whole life. It is a representation of you because it is a part of your livelihood. They had to take from their own flock. You have to kill it yourself. You offer it up. It is yours. It is a representation of you. You got to wholly give yourself to Yah, free of blemish. There's nothing to be used after that. And also get that the blood was not burned on the altar. Can you imagine burnt blood on the altar? That would not look good. How it coagulates. But anyway, the blood was spread around. The whole animal was burnt. Elevation offering. Be elevated. You do it through the test. Yah is so good. Baruch Hashem, everybody have a good day. Amen.